Hello, and welcome to the Knit and Grace podcast. This is episode 8. Hi there, and welcome back if you are a returning viewer. If you are new here, my name is Mia, and I am the maker behind Knit and Grace. And today I bring you the monthly podcast. So once a month I publish these episodes, just recapping everything that I knit in the previous month. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's going to be your standard knitting podcast style. So we'll go over FOs, whips. I do have just a few acquisitions this month, as well as my May making plans. So first things first, we'll go over what I'm wearing today. And today I am wearing the Bobbi Pullover by Gabriella Treminio of Hello Gabriella. I'm pretty sure that's still her Instagram handle, but if that's changed, I'll go ahead and update it here. But this is a pattern that I tested for Gabriella back in the summer of 2021, and it was released in August of 2021. For my specific top, I knit the 48-inch bust, and I used Bernat Softy Cotton, so a big box brand name if you're familiar with it. And yeah, I love this top. I wear it quite a bit. It is a drop shoulder design. It has all of these little baubles, hence the Bobbi pullover, and then it has just a short sleeve here. I believe that Gabriella originally designed hers in a merino wool blend, but I went with a cotton nylon blend for mine for a little bit more versatility in the summer, since the summers here are quite humid. And actually, I do wear merino in the summer, but sometimes I feel like it could be a lot, especially if it's if I'm using a larger gauge yarn, which this was. Okay, so we will go ahead and jump right in with the finished objects this month. This month I didn't finish too much. I guess I did do a lot of knitting, but I was just super busy. And so I did manage to finish 3 items, which I will share with you today. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and actually take a sip of my tea, which I don't think I've already said this, but this is a cup from Woolen Twine's Festive Box from 2022, so this past winter. And today I'm drinking a London Fog, which is essentially an Earl Grey latte. So I like to put a little bit of lavender in mine, and a little bit of vanilla flavored creamer that I use. I use like the barista creamer or whatnot, and I throw it in there in my teacup. And I'm drinking a decaf because I am filming this in the afternoon. But I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I do have my pile of FOs right here, right next to me to show you. And so the first one that I will show are a pair of vanilla socks that I managed to finish. And so I did show these in my last podcast as a whip. And yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about these. They're just a basic vanilla sock pattern. I use a 64 stitch pattern, and I knit my socks on US 1, which is 2.25 millimeter needles. For this particular sock, I actually did go with a 3x1 rib for the body. So I did a 2x2 rib for the cuff of the sock, which is my preferred rib for the cuffs, and then I carried a 3x1 rib all the way down, and then I like to knit mine with a heel flap and gusset. So yeah, and then just your rounded toe decrease. So really love these. I probably won't be able to wear them until the fall at this point, since it is warming up quite a bit here, and they're actually not even blocked yet. So I didn't just finish them, but I did finish them earlier in the month, and then I just hadn't gotten around to blocking them. So the next two FOs you will have actually already seen if you have watched my most recent video, which was all about fitting your knitted garments to yourself. And so the first one that I have is the Ava Pullover. And this is a pattern by Melody Hoffman. Let's see if you can see it. It's a little too large to be in frame. There we go, I think. And it is a drop shoulder sweater with long sleeves. It is a cropped design, and it is worked up in DK weight yarn. So for the specifications for mine, I did use Woolen Twine limited edition number 5. So I believe that was Eula's March of 2022, maybe, release. So it is I want to say, just one second, I'm going to go ahead and look this up because I don't remember what it is. Okay, so it is 80% Scotch Mule, 20% Gotland. I did have that in my head and I was going to say that, but for some reason I was second guessing myself. And this is a DK weight yarn. And I purchased the color Coral, which is just this beautiful pink color. So with regard to the pattern itself, I knit up the 5th size of the pattern, and again, as I mentioned, it is a cropped drop shoulder sweater. So what I actually did is I did make a modification of including 4-inch bust dart to accommodate for my bust so that it wasn't too cropped in the front. Otherwise, I didn't make any modifications to the length of the body, so I knit to the length that was indicated in the pattern. I did make a small modification to the armhole depth. I reduced it by 1 inch. So when I was knitting both the front and the back panels, I just knit them to 1/2 inch less than the intended length before joining the shoulders together. So it is knit bottom up. And then for the sleeves themselves, though, I still cast on the appropriate amount of stitches for my size. So that just means that I cast on at a more rapid pace. And so you'll see there's, you can't really tell there, but I just felt that the armhole depth was a little bit too deep for me for the fit that I wanted. And then for the sleeves, I worked the decreases and everything as it called for, but I did crop the sleeves slightly, I believe by 1/2 inch. So I knit the sleeves to 13 inches until I started the ribbing for the hem. So all of my modifications and my Ravelry project page, or all of my modifications will be listed on my Ravelry project pages, although this is pretty much all of the modifications here that I'm sharing with you, but I always link those in the description box below. And then last but not least, I have my building block drop by Amy Scher. And so this is what it looks like. Let's see. We can go back here. I think the whole thing is in frame. And so this is the second time that I'm featuring this pattern. If you've caught my last monthly podcast, I did feature it last month as well. And so this is the second time that I actually knit the pattern. And so I did make a few changes from the first time around when I knit the pattern. So for this version, I still knit the size E with cup size 4, the same as my first version. However, my gauge was slightly off. So my gauge was, I believe, 19 stitches to 4 inches as opposed to 17 stitches that's called for in the pattern. So I knew that that was going to cause a little bit of a tighter fit. So I still followed the instructions for size E and cup size 4, but I did know that the slip over was going to be slightly, or fit slightly tighter. That said, I still do have positive ease. So what else to say? I use Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool for this version in the color Brown Heather, which is just an absolutely beautiful color. Let me see if I can, yeah, there you go. You can see it's a really rich brown. And let's see, I knit the same size, same bust dart. So the pattern does call for a woolen spun yarn or an unspun yarn. This is a worsted spun yarn, so you know, that I think also contributed to the gauge difference, even though it is still a worsted weight yarn. But I don't find it to be too much heavier than my other slip over. That said, I did go with the split hem view this time around, so you can see that there. And then I did make a modification that is not included in the pattern, which is I decided to crop my slip over. So in order to achieve a cropped look, I know that for me, cropped means 10 inches from my underarm to my natural waist. So what I did was, you know, after, and this is a pattern that's knit bottom up. So after joining in the round and all of that, I worked the measurements till I had, well, the bust darts are in there, so I had to do a little bit of math, but essentially, I worked it so that I have a 10-inch length to the bottom of the front hemline as opposed to the back hemline, because as you notice, the back hem is a little bit lower than the front hem. I think those are all of the modifications that I made. I use just a regular cast on and bind off. I don't like to be super fussy with a tubular cast on and bind off. I personally don't care if my items look handmade. I think that's kind of the beauty of them. And it's just a little fiddly for me. I have done the tubular bind off when I'm knitting like toe up socks to make sure that the top is super stretchy. But other than that, I just stick with my regular cast on and cast off. So those are my finished objects for this month's episode. And as I noted in last month's episode, I have been finishing a bunch of objects, but I had never gotten around to taking FO shots of them. So I am going to do a little walk down memory lane with you all, where I will insert pictures here of some finished objects that I finished, I guess, I think all of these have been finished this year, but I just haven't had a chance to show you all a modeled picture of them. So the first item that I'm going to show you today is my husband's Oslo hat. And I should say that I'm not going to go into super amount of depth in these since I did cover them in previous podcasts. But yeah, I wanted to go ahead and share this with you. So this is my husband's Oslo hat. I made the adult large for him, and I didn't make any modifications, and I used the yarn Rico Design Essentials, their Merino DK, which is a superwash DK yarn. Next up, we have the Gentle Lopi by Melody Hoffman, and I knit this up in Plotu Lopi in the colors 1030 and 1038, so it is a marled look. And for this one, I knit up the third size, and again, I use Plotu Lopi held double. So next up we have the Ruka pullover, and this is by Sari Nordlund, and this was a test that I knit for her in December, and then I finished in the new year. And for this pattern I used Istax Let Lopi in the colors light gray heather, black heather, and white. And as you can see, this is just a beautiful color work circular yoke sweater. So this next one, I'm not 100% sure if I showed my finished object picture in the last podcast, and quite frankly, I didn't have time to go back and look, so I'm just going to go ahead and include it here. But this is the first iteration of the Building Blocks drop by Amy Scher, and again, drop shoulder design. I knit the vest view for this one, and for this version I knit it up in Onarakier Nutidin, and I used the color I knit it in the color Kvarts. And so for those of you who are unspun lovers, this pattern is written with both unspun and woolen spun instructions, so a really great one to have in your library. And then we have the story of two Oslo hats. And so if you have been following me for a while, you will remember that my sister and her partner cat sat for us when we were away in February. And so I made them a pair of matching Oslo hats in orange, specifically for hiking during the hunting season. And so for their hats, I used the Fiber Co. and Make DK, which is a wool alpaca linen blend similar to Pearl Soho's linen quill. And so for my sister's version, I knit the third size, and then for her partner's version, I knit the fourth size, which is the adult large. Okay, so we can get right into the whips. I don't have too many whips this month. I've actually been pretty good about not casting on too much. And if you followed my last podcast, you know that this whip that I'm about to show you was actually intended to be a finished object this month, and I just haven't been knitting on it the way that I should, so it is still a whip. And so as I take it out here we go. I'm holding it in my town bag that I recently made by Green Line Studio. And so it's just a really great little tote to carry around your projects. And let's see, this is the back. So this project is the Anchor Summer Shirt by Petite Knit. And so as you can see, I finished the yoke and I've joined for the body, and I'm currently knitting around and around and around. I'll go ahead and bring that up a little closer so you all can see how that looks. You may notice on my sample here that the back is elevated as opposed to the front, which if you have knit this before, you will know that the pattern actually does not include short row shaping, but I did actually add in short row shaping in the underarms of the t-shirt after I finished splitting for my sleeves. And so for this one, I am using Lion Brand Kobu, which is a mix of cotton and bamboo. So it's 51% cotton, 49% bamboo. And I'm using the color mauve. So that's what it looks like there. And with regard to the needles that I'm using, I am using a US 6 or 4mm needle. And for sizing, I'm kind of just winging it. So my gauge is off from the sizing of the pattern. And so I think that I'm shooting for somewhere between the 5th and 6th size. So I did cast on for the 5th size, if I recall correctly. And I have sort of all my notes in a notebook, and I usually typically transfer them to my Ravelry project pages when I'm done with the project. And then I kind of just kept increasing until I felt that it was fitting me well. And then, because if you know the pattern, it starts out with a circular yoke, and then it has raglan increases. So I just kept increasing until I thought it fit me well. And then I am working, and then I worked I split for the sleeves, and then I worked the short row, so they're worked into the underarm. And then now I'm working on knitting the body down. I'm not adding any shaping, bust shaping to the body because I am going to make the body a little bit longer. And then also with the drape of the yarn, I don't think that I'll need any extra bust shaping. I think it'll kind of hang on its own, since cotton is a little bit of a heavier yarn. And so yeah, so I'm hoping to finish this one up this month. I just haven't been knitting on it as much as I should, and I'll show you all. I'm using just a regular stitch marker, but I do have a Hello Lavender Progress Keeper on here. Let's see. I hope you can see that. But it says, it's from her affirmations collection, and it says, I am enough. So that is what I am working on, or one of the things that I'm working on, rather. So the other project that I am working on, I'm currently just housing it in this duster tote from Hohi & Co. from one of my bags that I purchased from them. But this is the Straya cardigan, or I think it's just Straya, by Andrea Mowry. And so I'm going to show you all real life. I had been pretty good about weaving in my ends as I went along, but there are a few last minute ends that I need to weave in. So let's get this all sorted out. So here it is. Let's see. And I just finished my stripes and started my hem ribbing. And so let me bring it up close. These are the colors that I'm using. And so the color of my main color here is Woolly Knit. They're British wool cone, and it is in the color cream. Then the first stripe is pink, which all my stripes are linen quill by Pearl Soho. So the first stripe is peony pink, then you have turmeric yellow, then you have kiln red, and then you have Stillwater blue. So this is a pretty similar, or at least the stripes are similar to the colors that Andrea used in her cardigan, although her cardigan I believe is like more of a gray as the base, and I've gone for this off-white. I am knitting the 5th size, and so far I haven't made any modifications to the pattern. I think I will likely just need to shorten the sleeves a bit, but we'll see how that works when I block everything. And so if you all have seen my 3 things to knit in the spring video, this is a pattern that I featured in that video, and I mentioned that I was going to knit. And I did actually mention that I would be buying more linen quill in the color Pale Oat to use as my main color whenever they had their next sale, which they did have a really big spring sale where all of their yarns were 25% off. And I was like this close to actually buying linen quill. And then when I was thinking about it, and I had the yarn in my cart, and then, I was thinking about it, I was like, well, first of all, this is a lot of money for yarn, and I knew that I was going to be spending money on yarn and fiber this month because we're going to Maryland Sheep and Wool, and my husband has gifted me a spinning wheel, so we are going to be picking it up. So I knew that I was going to be spending a lot of money. And then also I went back and looked at the composition of the yarn that Andrea used for her sample. And her cardigan is knit up in 100% wool. And because of the nature of half fisherman's rib, which this cardigan is knit 100% in half fisherman's rib, it tends to grow in length. And so then I got a little concerned that if I knit the cardigan in linen quill over time, it would just stretch out too much, like become too long. And so ultimately I decided to not purchase the linen quill to use as the main, and just use the linen quill as my, the scraps that I had from, actually my Vertices Unite are all in here, as my stripes. And so then I was thinking about other yarns that I could use, and I know that I really love Knit Picks Palette as a fingering weight yarn because this is a fingering weight pattern. And so I actually put some Knit Picks Palette in my cart, and I was actually looking at a color that's very similar to this one. And then I was like, wait, but I have this woolly knit cone that I purchased way back when, and I am trying to be good about my yarn purchasing this year, although, it hasn't necessarily been going very well. And I knew that I had the woolly knit cone, and the pattern that I intend to use this color for, I was only using it as the contrast color. So I knew that I would have plenty of yarn if I knit a cardigan in that cone to then be able to knit the other pattern. And so I swatched, and the rest is history. So that's how this came about, because if you have been following me for a while, you know that I kind of had completely different plans for this cardigan than it ended up being. So, let's see what else to tell you. I am knitting it in the recommended needle size, which is a US 2 or 2.75. And so I'm just about done with the body, and then I will just have to do my sleeves and the button band, and I'm really excited. I think that the pattern, the cardigan is going to be really versatile, especially just knowing, my spring, summer, and fall wardrobe colors. So I'm really excited to wear it, and I'm really excited to hopefully finish it soon. I don't know that it will be finished in May. It probably won't be, but I'm hoping that I definitely finish it before the end of the summer so that I can start wearing it in the fall once the weather cools back down. Okay, so now we have moved on, or we will be moving on to the acquisitions portion. So if this is part of the podcast that you're not interested in, you can always skip to the next chapter in the podcast, as I do include timestamps down below. But I don't actually have too many acquisitions this month because, again, I am technically trying not to purchase too much this year. But also, as I mentioned, we are going to Maryland Sheep and Wool, which actually I'll be on the way back home from Maryland Sheep and Wool when you are watching this video, since I am filming it in advance. And so I wanted to save my money for that, primarily. So, yes, where to start? So I have my acquisitions here under you all. And so the first thing to show you is I actually acquired more of the Fiber Co. and Make DK. And so this is this beautiful blue color. And I don't know what is going on with my life, but like the past 50 billion podcast episodes that I have filmed, it has been pretty dark because it's been raining. And that's just it, I guess. The days that I only sit down and film podcast episodes on rainy days, I guess. But this color is called Look at the Stars, and it's just this beautiful blue. And it is a true royal blue. And then you can see kind of the heathering that occurs because of the linen content in the yarn. It doesn't pick up the dye the same as the wool and alpaca. And so I picked up 4 of these, and they're actually for a very specific purpose. My sister's partner is a realtor and he asked me if I would be willing to knit some hats for him for his clients that he's very fond of. And so he did commission me to knit him 2 hats. And so that is actually probably going to be one of my main knitting items this month. So I will be knitting the Windskiff by Stephen West, and then I will be knitting another Oslo hat. So they will be kind of matching, but not matching. So that way, you know, they can decide to either switch back and forth, or, you know, they can, you know, both wear the hats, you know, decide who wants which hat, etc. So that is that yarn. The next yarn that I purchased, and again, this was with a specific thought in mind, and then with this particular dyer, because they are released in limited batches, you kind of have to snag them up. So this is Woolen Twine Fiber Studio, and this is the Cloud Base, which is Eula's Ethical Mohair, and this is in the color Oak. And so this specific mohair, I got 2 skeins, and so this is going to be a shawl that I'm going to say it's Tati Lusak is releasing soon. And while I wanted to sign up to test knit, I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to. So I'm just looking forward for the shawl to be released, and I will be knitting mine in Knitand. And so the yarn, or the shawl pattern, is meant to be knit with unspun yarn held with a mohair. So I have some Knitand that I'm going to hold this along with to make that shawl. And then last but not least, because we all love our little knitting accessories, I got these 2 little acorns from a company called Deegan. And so let's see if you can see that in my hand there. This one's a little long acorn. And then this is a little shorty guy. Oop. Here, how can we do this? There we go. And so these are little notions holder. So this long one actually holds your tapestry needles. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this. So I took the little lid off, and then you can see my tapestry needles in there. And then this short guy, again, the lid just pops up off, and it's a little, I only have one little stitch marker in there that I randomly found around the house, but it's a stitch marker holder. And so I just thought that these were so cute, and I picked these up. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the podcast. Now we can talk about my May making plans. And so for May, as I mentioned, I will be knitting up those 2 hats for my sister's partner's clients. And I will have a test knit that I'm working on for Heather Nolan of Oleanic Knits. They are a dear, dear friend, and I'm so excited to be able to test knit a pattern for them. And so I'm going to be testing their vintage Lopi sweater. And so for this one, I haven't gotten the yarn for it yet, and so I'm going back and forth because it is designed in Lopi, and it is a Lopi, you know, like a traditional Lopi Peza, I guess is what they're called, I think, sweater. So I was like, well, of course I need to knit it in Lopi. And I don't know about you all, but if you've been ordering from yarn.com recently or webs, the shipping is still pretty fast, but I feel like the what's it called? How long it takes them to actually like ship your package has been very long. So it's been taking me a very long time to get my yarn. And I mean by very long, I mean like a week. No, probably not a week. More like a week and a half to get my yarn, depending on when I am placing my order. So I actually think that I'm going to try to pick up some yarn while I'm at Maryland Sheep and Wool. I know that Green Mountain Spinnery is one of the vendors that's going to be there. So I think that that's going to be my plan, is just because I hadn't had a chance to place an order for yarn yet. That way I can get yarn while I'm down there. It has a specific purpose. It's going to be knit up right away, and that'll be like my one yarn purchase for the trip. And then I will be likely purchasing some fiber for my new spinning wheel. So that's all I have for you all today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you had a good April and are having a good start to your May. As always, let me know, you know, obviously any comments on the video that you might have, but let me know what you're working on, whether it's knitting or sewing or anything like that. As the weather warms up here in the Northeast, I'll likely start transitioning to a little bit more sewing coming up, so that's really exciting. I did buy some fabric recently, so I'm really excited to go ahead and cut into that. But I hope everything is well with you, work, life, family, etc. Things have been a little hectic here, so hence, I guess the low quantity of items that I have been working on, but you know, I have been busy on a few other things behind the scenes. In terms of my next video for this month, I'm not quite sure what that's going to be. I'm definitely going to have a vlog of Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, and that might be my one and only second video for the month. But I will try to put out another sort of more sit-down video this month. We'll just see how that goes, because life has been a little hectic, as I've mentioned, and I've just been dealing with just some stress as usual. But yeah, I guess I will leave you here for now, and I will see you in the next one. Of course, be sure to do all the things, like, subscribe, hit the bell, all the things, and I will see you next time. Bye.